Did everybody get the minutes from Jen and have a chance to look at them? I can tell you, I printed it and I didn't read it yet.
I read them.
But it seemed okay. So if anybody does have any other comments, just let Jen know and we'll get them emailed over to Deb to put in there. And I think we caught up on other requests that she had.
Yes.
Making sure the minutes online are all taken care of. All right, next on my agenda is our guests. So, hi Pete.
Hello.
Nice to see you. A particular topic or just sitting in again?
No, just sitting in.
Okay. Our next guest, introduce yourself.
Yes, Charlie Cradaville, Food and Water Watch. I'm the Central Jersey organizer. Is now the right time for me to speak? Okay, great. I did bring a letter with me and also my camera. I hope you don't mind. There were some people who wanted to be here but couldn't. So I am recording the proceedings. Dave, you can take one and pass it around. Started off my day today with New Jersey Office of Emergency Management warning of oppressive heat. Fair to say that was accurate. And also got an air quality alert today. Just received another one within the past 90 minutes saying that the most recent hourly estimate of ozone had reached 101 AQI for air quality index, which means unhealthy for sensitive groups. And the one earlier today said that sensitive individuals, including the very young, elderly, and persons with respiratory diseases such as asthma, should avoid strenuous activities, and that unfortunately this situation could continue for several more days. The reason I'm starting off with this is because we have been asking for the borough to take action to oppose a plan for a gas-fired power plant in the Caseby section of Woodbridge. And if that plan gets approved, we can expect to have more and more days like this. Oppressive heat, unsafe air. I'll note that volatile organic compounds and NOx are two of the major components of the emissions that the company wants permission to pollute, and those do combine to create ozone at the ground level. Ozone's a good thing if it's up in the ozone layer, but it's a bad thing here on the ground level. It makes it harder for people to breathe. And I, for one, think we've already got enough pollution here in Central Jersey. It's a great place to live, but it will get worse if we continue to build fossil fuel infrastructure. It's 2022. I think the science is clear that the more fossil fuel infrastructure we build, the more of these kinds of pollution that we emit, the faster the climate is going to change and the worse the impacts will be for us all. It's not just heat or unsafe air. I think we all have also seen the devastation that frequent storms can bring us. And so we're expecting a really hot July and a really hot August. And then here on the East Coast, we've got hurricane season coming up right after that. And we can hope and pray that nothing bad happens. But yes?
Can I have a question?
Of course.
What, is there a permit or some specific action that is pending at this time?
Great question, yes. So the New Jersey DEP is currently evaluating an air permit, an air pollution permit from the company, Competitive Power Ventures. This is a process that's approaching the conclusion. It's been a 6-year process. They filed the air permit application back in 2016, and we're told that the DEP is expecting to conclude their review in the fall. So,
are there any other permits or just an air permit?
We certainly see the air permit as the best chance to stop the project. We are looking into things like impacts on the Raritan River, which could implicate the Clean Water Act and other things like that. But the real best chance to stop it is by having the DEP reject their application for an air permit.
And do you know if the DEP, I don't know what the process has been with this permit. Has there been discussion of the plant including measures to limit these pollutants? Like how much is being done about that, if you know?
Yeah, their application speaks for itself in terms of what they're asking permission to emit. So despite their best efforts, they still want to emit, 2.3 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. So greenhouse gases to the tune of millions of tons per year. Not to mention all the toxic
So
pollutants.
even with whatever
Technology they're prepared to employ, they're asking for permission to do that. Notably, as mentioned in this letter, it's next to an existing gas-fired power plant owned and operated by the same corporation that emits or has permission to emit around the same amount. So it would combine to be one of the worst climate polluters in New Jersey at 4.6 million tons of greenhouse gases every year, based on the permit itself. So the reason we're here is because it's proven to be an effective tactic for neighboring communities to take a stand against infrastructure like this. If not for some 50-plus government entities in North Jersey taking a stand against the proposal for a gas power plant in North Bergen, there'd be a gas power plant in North Bergen. But fortunately, Governor Murphy did the right thing on that one, and a big part of the reason he did was because local leaders, decision makers who were in seats like the seats you're sitting in right now, took a stand and said, we're going to pass a resolution against it. So, to sum up why I'm here tonight, we're asking the Metuchen Environmental Commission to recommend the Borough Council pass a resolution opposing this in accordance with your charge, your mission, to make recommendations with respect to air pollution and air quality. And I had passed out some other resources at a prior meeting, your last meeting, but I did want to follow up with the letter. This is just try and make it easy for you. But obviously, if you want to change the language, you can feel free to put it in your own words. Yes.
Yeah, I have another question about this.
Of course.
The Keysby, I'm just thinking about this, I think is in Woodbridge.
Correct.
Have they, I don't see them listed as opposing it. Have you spoken with them, or do you know what their position is on this?
We have. We were at the most recent Environmental Commission, and I was pleased to note that 2 of the 4 commissioners present expressed a concern about it, but they were not clear if they even had a quorum that night to take action, so I'll be coming back to their next meeting. But suffice to say, the municipal government has not taken a stand on it, has not taken a stand against it. Indeed, they have approved a 30-year tax exemption for the developer.
Angela?
Just like,
Yes, sorry.
Madam Chair, sorry. Charlie, good to see you.
Great to see you.
So when you were describing the Bergen County dynamic, right? How many of the towns actually passed resolutions governing, themselves with respect to the neighboring power plant?
Yeah, it's actually the municipalities of North Bergen, it's in Hudson County, but there were over 50 resolutions adopted, including the Hudson County then freeholders that took a stand against it.
Where was the town that this happened? Where it was supposed to be happening?
Supposed to be in North Bergen, and notably North Bergen was not one of the towns that took a stand against it. It was all the others in the area. So we're here because you're just 2 miles away from this site, and
right.
We think in the interest of your residents, it would make a lot of sense to take a stand.
What about all the other towns? What about the towns, and obviously Woodbridge doesn't only border Middlesex County towns. Woodbridge
Right,
borders
right.
Union County towns as well, at least one town, I think maybe 2. My geography is just okay. So what about those other towns? Have they had any conversations? I mean, they're closer than we are even. Have the communities of, obviously Edison is one town, but there are other towns in the area that are just as close and closer than our community? And how about those discussions?
Yeah, I don't believe so. I know that you're about 2 miles as the crow flies from the site. Keysby is the southernmost section of Woodbridge, so it's very close to New Brunswick. One reason I've been fighting this since 2018 when I first learned about it. Union County's a little bit further, but I'm pleased to report we will be on the agenda for the next Rahway Environmental Commission meeting, as well as they're considering taking action now. And environmental commissions are leading the way. We've had just this week, New Brunswick and Franklin Township voted to recommend to their councils to take action, and they followed up on Sayreville, which has also had its environmental commission take a stand. And you see in the letter the actual municipal governments that have taken a stand, including Edison, Highland Park, Perth Amboy, and Hoboken so far. And we'd love to add Metuchen to the list. It's a beautiful place, a great community, and want to do everything we can to help make that happen.
Yeah, so I certainly know your position, and I know that, you volunteer or work for Food and Water Watch.
I am the Central Jersey organizer, a full-time,
You're a paid
full-time
employee?
staff, yes,
Okay.
correct.
So, and I appreciate that you're doing your job, right? I just,
Yes.
as mayor, I've made my position on this very clear, and the council has as well, that we are not going to adopt a resolution on this. And the reason for it is not anything to do with, with the borough's concern, deep concern over climate change. I mean, I don't think there's been, in terms of, in terms of this commission and, other members of our community, I don't think there has been, any more committed group of council members. I mean, he's not there anymore, we had a councilman who would bring up these issues all the time, and I feel like we need to do more. I mean, we've had these conversations, I've spoken to Councilwoman Rasmussen about this. I mean, the borough has not done enough, but my concern with this is the performative nature. I don't believe that municipalities passing resolutions are effective tools. I don't believe that municipalities passing resolutions are effective tools for lobbying unless our position has been specifically solicited by, for example, our union, which is the League of Municipalities, when we all have to gather together as municipalities as an organized effort, or when we, for example, have been given some responsibility, by to declare, a month to be, a ovarian cancer awareness month, or something like that. We've done those over the years. I mean, the councilwoman has been on this body a lot longer than I have, but never in the history of Metuchen, in the history of the town, no matter what has been said at different points by different people, has the borough ever adopted a resolution telling another town or opining on the actions of another town, and telling them what to do. It's just not in our purview. And the thing is, we don't have a disagreement on the detrimental impacts of climate change. I mean, we've got to do more. And we haven't done enough in the borough. And actually, we've got to talk about, it's one of the things I was expecting to talk about, and not this again necessarily, but that we've got to put together a list of things, easy fixes. Let's start with some easy fixes. There's some low-hanging fruit in our ordinance book, like the amount we ding people for just idling their car, for example, is probably not enough. There's different, various easy steps we probably can take, especially with some of you, you environmental specialists. With some of this, we're lucky to have an environmental commission that actually has, either, I should say, former members of the DEP, right? Former members of the DEP, plural. So we can do more, and we're probably not doing enough. And so as we put those heads on the pillow at night, we probably should do more with increasing storms and increasing heat advisories. I mean, we're opening up, we haven't announced this publicly yet, we've got this camera on, so, but we're gonna be opening our pool, for example, on Saturday from 4 to 8 to anyone in the whole town, because it's gonna be so darn hot this weekend. We wanna make sure that we're, providing that for people. So it's bad. I mean, things are bad right now, but I think this is misdirected. I think that Food and Water Watch does a very noble job at pushing these issues, and they've done some real good work in other communities, some of our surrounding communities over the years. And Charlie, I know, is a real advocate and a zealous one at that. But my biggest concern is that we start getting into the business of engaging other towns in what they should or shouldn't be doing, and that's just not our role. Just like it's not their role to tell us what we should or shouldn't be doing here in the borough. And I've spoken very directly to Senator Deignan about this issue. And I was surprised to hear, when I spoke to him the day after we had a number of people from our community come to the microphone, that he had not yet spoken to anyone. I mean, I'm sure by now he has. But there are places much closer to the decision makers on this issue that hadn't yet, they have by now, my conversation with him was maybe a month ago, but who had not yet been contacted. And so as a first line to go to the municipality to ask us to make a decision on something that we have no actual role on, no decision making, no jurisdiction on, is something that I feel like is a bit of a waste of time. One of the reasons Metuchen has grown in such a productive way, that we've been so effective in our messaging, right, on social justice issues, on other issues, we end up getting more coverage for whatever reason in the media. We end up Having the governor downstairs to sign one of the most impactful pieces of legislation that have been signed in the state of New Jersey in years, right here in Metuchen. One of the reasons we've been able to do that is because we are very careful when we speak and when we speak out. And I want to maintain that credibility because my disagreement with Mr. Cradival in this case is not on the issue of climate change, because we should all be doing more. We all agree on that. My disagreement is the way we're going about this. And you know, we put together a list of, obviously as elected officials, as the mayor, as council members, we have probably more access to these people than most of our residents, right? We tend to call them on their cell phones, we email them regularly, we speak to their staff members. And so I was speaking to someone today in our community who I greatly respect about this issue. And one of the things I said was, you know, we will provide you with access to these people if you don't feel like you have it, right? If there's no way to go, people don't know where to go. There was one person I was talking to, not the person I was speaking to today, the other day about this, and he said to me, but where do we go? Like, I'm so concerned about this, and where do I go? And my response to him was, I will get you a list of places that you can go. And I provided him with a list of, you know, Rob Karavinchik's, our Assemblyman, Sterling Stanley's email addresses, Pat Dignan's email address specifically, because I know that those are the email addresses that don't just go to the generic pile. They go directly to those people. And if for some reason he wasn't able to reach them, tell us. Because I know Dorothy, and you all know Dorothy for years. She'll get on the phone and say, you know, we've got some constituents who are concerned. Why didn't you reach back out? And I have no reason to believe that would happen, but that's the kind of ability we have to help people reach their representatives. So that's one aspect. Obviously, I don't know what BPU's role is in this at this point, but as the Board of Public Utilities, they're an independent regulatory agency who is responsible for governing every aspect of utilities in the state. They are not involved in this at all, but they are they're still advisory on anything going before water, electric, you know, even cable. We've gone to them. God knows the TV and Technology Committee has gone to them on a number of issues with cable recently. So look, BPU is a place that you could go, but you know, Brian, you make that face. BPU is still closer to this than we are in terms of their ability to impact the decision making. And the decision is obviously in the hands of the state. You know, there's the governor's office is you know, is a place that is familiar to this borough. If there are concerns, then we should direct them to the governor's office. We should direct them to our state representatives. We should direct them to Sean Lederette, who's, look, he's a resident of Highland Park, for God's sakes. I mean, he lives right, and he's been a great, you know, advocate on issues like this in his career before even becoming commissioner. So, I mean, these are the kinds of conversations that I think are a better use of residents' time and efforts. I mean, I just, it's become a drumbeat at our meetings. It's become our public comment section. We have so many things going on, but it's become a huge you know, concern of all of us to deal with climate change. And I think that we need to look at productive ways right here in the borough that we can be more productive. A resolution on this front, in my view, is not something that we should waste our time on. So that's my view. You know, and obviously I was coming here to talk to you about what we were going to do tonight, because it was a good night to do it in view of this of these concerns, because I know we need to do more. So that's something that I would appreciate the opportunity to get your thoughts on.
While you're here, do you want to get into any of those things?
Well, I don't want to cut into. I was asking Charlie a question and then a response. I said
Yeah,
that. So I cut into Mr. Crowder's
Oh,
time.
okay.
I feel bad about this. So why don't you
Don't feel bad. I appreciate your position on this. I do want to, you know, point out for the record, there was Resolution 2016-94 where this borough did pass a resolution opposing the Pilgrim Pipeline. And that was something that Food and Water Watch worked with the council to do. And you can find it on the web, along with, looks like maybe 25, 30 other towns that did take action on that. And I
think that pipeline comes into Metuchen, apropos the mayor's comment. It went through a bunch of towns, right? It's
Correct,
the one
that-
they were gonna run
the siting,
just up the
yes.
hill from the Roosevelt Park Lake. I remember talking about that. It was gonna
Yeah.
be-
And I wasn't mayor until probably
Right.
a year and a half after that. But you know, we've had our share of environmental threats. I remember talking to Mayor O'Brien.
Right.
Some of you were on probably up the trash train. I don't know if any of you were involved in that discussion, but there are matters relating to the environment, that of course we would take up if they impacted us in that way, if they were within our jurisdiction. That one, I don't know enough about that issue because I wasn't the mayor at the time.
Right,
Mr.
right.
Mayor, apropos your point, it touched.
Came through part of
It was cited in the borough,
Yes.
no dispute about that. Also, I don't think there's any dispute that building a 630 megawatt gas plant in Casby would impact the borough.
No, I'm not saying it wouldn't impact
Right.
us. Listen, the fossil fuel industry, there's all kinds of issues, all kinds of concerns. I've seen the allegations about the particular,
The company.
company that's building this one.
Yeah.
I see that. I've seen some other stuff as well, not necessarily as negatively portrayed. I've seen a lot of information on this. I'm not an expert in any of this, and there's people in this. Every single person in this room is a much more knowledgeable environmental expert on some of these issues than I am. But I know it takes a real lot for a municipal entity to reach into the affairs of another municipal entity, not even an adjacent one, right? 2 municipal entities away in a particular direction, and to get, to tell it what it should or shouldn't be doing. And I've spoken to Mayor McCormick about this issue, and we joked about it a little bit because we're colleagues and we work together, and the mayor's been extraordinarily helpful in a number of ways. To the borough, and we have a couple shared service agreements with them, and we worked well with them. They brought our municipal clerk up to speed. I know Deb Zupan passed her test. She got a 94 on her clerk exam, which was a great thing. She transferred her career from librarian into municipal clerk, which we're really proud of her. Their clerk, John Mitch, provided that support. Our tax collector, our tax assessor,
Right.
left somewhat abruptly, and so now we have a shared service Woodbridge for their tax assessor. So we work very well with them. But in one of my conversations with Mayor McCormick, the conversation came up about I explained there's some real concerned members of our community. And his response was like, I don't tell you what to do in your town, you don't tell us what to do in our town. And I have to agree with that position. I mean, what if they decided to take a position on some of the apartments we're building, claiming that it somehow undermines the apartments that they're building in their downtown? That's a far-fetched example, but I'm just trying to find one off the top of my head. We just generally try to leave each other alone. I'm grateful for the fact that New Jersey has some of the most stringent, environmental regulations in the country, and I would hope that as these decisions are weighed by our state officials, that they consider all the factors and make the right decision. And whatever that decision is, based on all the facts before them, after all their investigating into and determinations, these are really important decisions, and I would hope the Murphy administration ultimately weighs everything carefully.
So why don't we talk about then voicing our concerns to the Murphy administration and to DEP? I mean, if you're suggesting that, the mayor and council have made up their minds collectively already, why don't we talk about at least directing concerns that we seemingly all agree? I think probably, we've voiced our concerns about this. I would think people look at the letter and say,
I think you can
that
do
sounds
that.
reasonable.
Yeah, well, that's what I say. I will. There's probably ways that we can help you reach people that you want to talk to about this more effectively than if you just randomly start sending postcards, for example. I absolutely think that we can help you do that. If the people in this room want more effective ways to reach decision makers on this, I'm happy to be of assistance. That's one of the roles that I see in my role as mayor.
Yeah,
Yes,
just
sorry.
if I may
I'm
respond, I can tell we both
around.
have the gift of gab, so I don't want to prolong the meeting here, but I did want to just sort of respond to that framing because, the reality is we're not asking Metuchen to interfere with the affairs of any other municipality. What we are asking is for this body and eventually the elected leadership to weigh in on a permitting decision at the state level. It's a New Jersey DEP decision on whether or not to grant the air permits. In their infinite wisdom, when the legislature set all this up, they established the DEP to be the only ones who can grant the permission to pollute this much. And that decision is in their hands. I know that you know Governor Murphy. I know Governor Murphy was just here in Metuchen. He cares what Metuchen and its leaders think. So we're humbly asking this body to express your opinions officially to the state DEP, and that's separate and apart from any site plan or any development decision that the municipality of Woodbridge may have. This is a state decision, and we're just respectfully asking you to use your power to influence that decision as much as you can, because some of us have been fighting this for many years now, and it's approaching a decision point, and we do know that the governor listens and does care what in particular this town thinks, being just 2 miles away from the site. So that's really all I wanted to say.
Can I just say one more
Yeah,
thing?
sure.
And I appreciate what you're saying, because it's two a different, but I think it's one and the same. Like whether we involve ourselves in Woodbridge matters by going directly to Woodbridge, or if we involve ourselves directly in Woodbridge matters by going to the state by telling them they should reject a plan that Woodbridge had with the power plant, it's still the same thing. That being said, I appreciate that you, as a non-Metuchen resident, view Metuchen as influential in the statewide realm. That makes me feel like we are doing our jobs as leaders. Councilwoman Rasmussen, I'm sure, joins me in that. But I'm just going to share this with you. I think we agree that there's an issue with fossil fuels. There's clearly some concern. I've spoken to a couple of you individually about this issue in particular. I've spoken to other people about this issue, including one today, one yesterday, or the day before. And so I think that the municipal official action is out of the question for us, but the individual action on this to the right place, like you've talked about, possibly is a much more appropriate avenue, and we will help facilitate that. I'm sure, I think that we will help facilitate anyone who's looking for a way to have their voice heard. There will be we'll make sure that happens.
Is there I'm a bit removed from air permitting in New Jersey since I switched to Superfund world, and most of my projects are out of the state. But is there a public comment period on draft permits still? Is that
Correct. There
still
would,
working in that procedure?
if the application is deemed complete, they would issue a draft permit, and there'd be a very short period of time for the public to weigh in. 60 to 90 days is what we're looking at. Final decision could come by the end of the year, and we just, with the greatest respect for you and your service, would ask, one of the commissioners to make a motion, another to make a second, and to vote to make this recommendation, and then leave it to the elected officials to do what they see fit. This is an independent commission with the authority to make recommendations, and if you think that what is right for the borough and for the environment and air quality is to put this on the record, we have taken the liberty of preparing a letter that you could sign tonight and join Sayreville, North Brunswick, New Brunswick, and Franklin Township Environmental Commissions and those elected municipal governments as well. So I'll remain available for questions, but that's all I wanted to say.
My question about the public comment period is that then that time period would be available for anybody within the state, within Metuchen, and any other town to comment as an individual on air permits, on the air permit, while it's still in that public comment period. And you and I both know that doesn't necessarily mean the DEP takes any of those comments into, they read them, of course, but whether that changes their decision or not all depends on the comments that they receive and how many they receive.
Yeah, and decision makers carry more weight. Your views as a appointed member of the Environmental Commission mean more than Charlie from New Brunswick or Dan from
come on,
Metuchen.
you're underselling
So, but I do think that there's a reason we came here. We are asking your support because this is an urgent environmental justice issue that will affect your residents.
Well, we appreciate the information, of course, and obviously, as Jonathan said, we all have concerns in general in fossil fuels and where we go from here, and we definitely will be having more discussions on what we can do as a town to do that. I personally do not feel comfortable trying to get our commission to make a statement when our government has already stated that this is not in the best interest of Metuchen to actually pass a resolution. We are definitely in the process of disseminating, in the business of disseminating, I can't speak tonight, information out to people on many, many topics. And certainly there are members of the public who are not on the Environmental Commission who are Metuchen residents who are interested in this topic. And as Jonathan also stated, we certainly can provide the information to anyone who wants to, if they need to call their assemblyman, if they need to speak to somebody, if they don't know the emails of their, because you're right, a lot of people don't know how to get in touch with
Right.
people in those government entities. And that's something that we do in general. You know, we send out information on different meetings and seminars and training sessions and comment periods and all those kinds of things. So it certainly could be part of that system as we move forward. Say if somebody needs help doing that, or letting people know there's a public comment period if this is a topic that you are interested in, you know, they have to go directly to the DEP with their comments, et cetera.
Well, just to reiterate, we are asking the commission to take a stand. Any member who wishes could make a motion, and another could make a second to adopt the recommendation. I hope that you'll do that tonight.
Thank you for coming. Abby, did you get, we have a third visitor, so she needs names.
Dan Hayden, H-E-Y-D-E-N.
Just for the minutes so we have who our visitors are. All right, did you check the mailbox?
Yes, I did, there's no mail.
No mail, okay,
Right,
no
that's where I went.
correspondence.
No mail, yay.
This, did you want to talk about some of the things? you
So
wanted to
yeah,
talk
so
about
I
first?
just, I ended up talking more than I expected just because I was sort of going my back and forth with Mr. Credible, but I do think that there's more we can do. I mean, I've been having this issue, you know, Dan is the first one who came to our meeting to discuss this a month and a half ago. And, you know, we could sit here and answer all we want about everything we've been doing, but we haven't done enough. I mean, we're only bronze on the Sustainable Jersey. I know that's just like a rating system, but we take it seriously, and there's towns that do better. And like, if we're gonna be on the forefront of all these issues, I'd like to really do it in a way that shows that our town is moving forward on what we can at least do within our control here.
Right.
Some of the stuff is like not particularly realistic right now. For example, getting a green garbage truck, electric garbage truck, is something that we'd all love to have, but you can't just snap your fingers and instead of buying a regular, you know, fuel diesel garbage truck, you can't just like get an electric garbage truck unless you have the infrastructure for it, unless you have the mechanics who know how to fix them when they break down. God, they break down all the time, and we have a big issue with garbage right now, which is not necessarily a discussion for right now. But, you know, people are leaving all kinds of stuff that are breaking the garbage, you know, trucks. So we occasionally have various crises to ensure that we still pick up everybody's garbage on time, and
People throw like concrete.
it's really bad
People throw
right now.
concrete.
But we have to figure out ways, right? We like, that's the day-to-day governing, whatever. In the long term, like, we can keep saying we don't have the infrastructure. Like, at some point, when we have to leave municipalities, you know, you hear the vendors and they talk to you, and they tell you, you know, well, no, it's not even remotely as complicated as you think. And then you get back and you do the research and we speak to our attorneys and they explain how some things aren't possible yet. And then, you know, you hope that in a year or two, the next police car that's available could potentially be electric. And then maybe, you know, we can quell the concerns about the fact that electric police cars go as quickly, or, you know, are designed exactly the same as others, and they just need to be plugged in here at Borough Hall, and they can run as well as fuel vehicles. Those are just a very small aspect. I would love it if you guys could help us come up with more. And I'm not talking about something like that's the next 6 months. You know, our borough has agendas that we set for ourselves in January during the whole State of the Borough address that we do on January 1st. And Melissa, our borough administrator, gets really cranky with me because sometimes we throw a lot into the council, and I throw a lot into that. That makes it a very ambitious year. This year we purposely kept things less because I wanted to make sure Melissa stayed on the job. And we didn't put too much in there, and we really were just trying to complete and close a couple doors, some things that we just hadn't cleaned up instead of opening new ones. But I don't want to keep finding excuses as to why we're not doing more here. So if I'm going to make the argument like we have that we're not, you know, that's a performative task, let's do stuff here. So I would ask that if any of you who know how to, we've already asked our council to review some of these things. I know Jason Delia, our council president, and I spoke about this yesterday actually while I was at my kid's baseball game. I missed a couple runs against us. I wasn't sure of the score when we were done. But I do know that we had some, you know, there were some conversations about some of the basic ways, some like the low-hanging fruit. Some things may take longer to do, but there's things we might be able to do in the short term. So anyone who has ideas on ways that our ordinances could be like amended with a first reading on August, I think 22nd is our next meeting, I would welcome that, because I think that would be a good time to just do it.
And maybe we could check through some of the Sustainable Jersey actions that they're
Right.
looking to do.
Right.
And see, what can we get done?
Jason was gonna call the League of Municipalities as well. I know that
Okay.
there's some
Idea.
model ordinances that are around. I have no opposition to adopting new ordinances, but I'm thinking for stuff we can do like right away. Because we sit here and we talk about it, oh, look how green we are, we're concerned about climate change, like what are we doing? And are we doing enough? And when Dan came to the meeting, I felt like it was time to look at ourselves on this issue and ask ourselves, like, oh, what are we really doing?
I mean,
Because this is a huge problem.
There's things that we've gone through the motions of, such as energy audits on buildings, municipal buildings. I mean, we can talk about producing more energy. We can also talk about saving energy with what we need currently. We've gone through the motions of having audits and our government programs with subsidies and incentives to make improvements. Up till now, we've largely hit a brick wall on those.
When
And
you
we've
say
gone
brick-
through them before.
Like brick wall, like with the borough, once you actually,
Correct.
yeah.
In prior administrations.
Well, that's, I mean, listen,
So-
I get brick walls all the time.
Right,
Even though I'm
so-
like, we should do this, and it's like, wait a minute.
Wait.
You realize how much work, I mean,
Right.
but again, I'm willing to push
Right.
the administration to do more work on this because of what's, like, it's a get real moment a little bit
Right.
for all of us.
And in my mind, it's a lot easier, it's something we've already taken some steps through, it's things that there's a lot of infrastructure out there to do the right thing, to help you do the right thing, rather than, okay, yeah, a nice new green electric garbage truck would be nice, but it's probably a lot more meaningful if we have energy efficient
Right.
municipal.
There were, and Dorothy mentioned this
Right.
Sustainable Jersey program before. When we looked through it last year, when we were in the certification cycle, we identified a couple of things in there that we thought that we could do over the course of maybe 2 or 3 years.
The low hanging fruit.
Yeah, some of the little, where we were not gonna get certified for it the
Right,
last
this
time we
year,
did
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
But if we got an ordinance changed or something changed, then we could qualify for that next year. So we can take a
Right.
look at that
We're
list
gonna-
again
yeah,
and
we'll
say,
look
here's,
through
because we put them in our mind as these are goals for the
Yeah.
next couple of
But I mean,
years.
I'd be interested in seeing what they say, because even the Sustainable Jersey categorization is a little bit like performative, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you did something, it may not even be that helpful, it's considered more green than something else. But that being said, when I think about the fact that we're bronze, and I look at other, I mean, by the way, Woodbridge, who, is being criticized, I guess, by some, for allowing this power plant by some, they're a gold, I think,
Oh,
I
they're
know.
more than gold. They're gold plus.
Gold, okay.
Plus.
I don't even,
Because
didn't know that was even possible.
they have,
Yeah.
I think Sustainable Jersey created a special category for Woodbridge because of how many things they do and how much work that they do.
But my point
Saying.
is, there's categories
Mhm.
in Sustainable Jersey that would be great. But if in the process we were actually improving things
Right,
right.
right.
And here's the other piece. As we come through with this, one of the benefits of speaking with a selective voice is that we've really established some very strong relationships with other towns. There are other mayors that I speak to on a regular basis, that I go for advice, for counsel, they come to me for questions, how did you do this, why did you do this, I was at the Edison Mayor's wedding this weekend. I mean, we've become, you're colleagues, and very few people get what it's like in this position except for each other and sometimes. So we've become close. I do think that if we came up with a couple, things that we can do, we might be able to do it in partnership with a number of the other towns, and sort of all agree to take it back to our councils and do that. And so when we're thinking of these things, this stuff that can be done in other places, although some of them have done some of these things already, and some of them may have more infrastructure to be able to do it, like Edison's, municipal building is much more capable in some ways of managing projects than ours, just because of the number of
Well, Mayor,
employees.
there's a number of things, though, where we've made recommendations involving things in the town and either received and either receive the answer that that can't be done or that will bore a local ops. Quickie list. The sustainability-related model ordinances, we've asked that the borough attorney could look into that. There's stormwater runoff, energy, for example, are two of them.
Did you guys, are you the ones who recommended the checklist for contractors?
Well, that would be one way to go.
Because that was something we've
That's a way to
stalled a little bit.
operationalize it, but there's model because with all the redevelopment in town.
Yeah.
It's not green, and the town isn't requiring it. And the developers know Metuchen's a soft touch. We know that, and the town has said, well, because that'll impede development, but of course it won't. If you just look at the market, it's always been a desirable place. I don't want to beat it to death. That's one. We've talked about, really simple stuff. We heard that there was a proposal to pave the pool parking lot, which would cause flooding and erosion in the woods behind it. So we were not consulted on that decision or on its implementation. The replacement of the soccer fields with sustainable materials and not chrome rubber, exposing the kids to it. We asked what the material is, still don't know. We talked about putting solar panels on the buildings, and we're told we can't do that despite available incentives. We asked about, what about the schools? They're empty all summer, they could be a solar mine, if you have land around the high school, for example. Oh, and it's the Board of Ed that's out of our jurisdiction, we can't deal with that. The police wouldn't even fill out the log of how often the police department of this own town wouldn't fill out the log of how often they drive the cars, how many miles they run up in this tiny town.
Right, yeah, we tried to get that done.
I mean, I could go on, man. We're just
I got it.
talking about our own backyard.
Okay, I got it.
So
listen, and some of those things, yeah.
We've
so-
been shot down
And
on most, every
Brian,
one of those.
I actually, we talked about, a little bit about the pool park in the last meeting. I emailed Jay to remind him that the rain garden's there, and whatever
Yeah,
the plans
yeah.
are, we'll help you. Please don't, take out the rain garden in the future plans. And he said that there hasn't been funding yet
Well,
officially.
Yeah, well, we haven't,
and there's
federal
no-
funding takes a long time to
There's
come.
no,
Right.
there's, the site, the engineer hasn't even started to come up
But
with
I
a
mean,
site
the
plan yet.
$800,000 for the parking lot that we got from Congress for that, through Congressman Pallone, that money comes with some ties that are more environmentally friendly. There's a requirement of some bike racks, there's a requirement of electrical charging stations. So some of the ties to that money are through that Congress has required us to do things that we should be doing anyway. Those are not, that doesn't have to do with permeable surfaces and those other
Not
issues.
at all.
Right.
Not at all.
But those are, I'm just saying, that so,
Yeah.
so we have, the answer is, we haven't even begun to design any of that stuff because it's not
Right.
before us right now.
But that's also, we work with Rutgers, I mean, they gave us that rain garden, we paid nothing for it. They were really, really excited to work with us on it, and if we, if there's space, and that's why we would like to be involved, because if there's space in the design,
Right.
we can probably get Rutgers to come in and maybe
And not do another
do
area.
another rain garden.
Yeah.
I'm
But
sure that
believe me,
area
that's how the
can
relationships work, and that's how we
Yeah.
end up doing so well. We've got really good diplomatic ties with lots of different entities and people. So yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you. But we just have to, listen, that parking lot is gonna, is gonna be a plan. We've gotta come up with that plan. And so we've gotta talk about that, if that's something of concern to you.
Well, these are just,
And
that's
we
the-
appreciate your
yeah.
enthusiasm, Mr. Mayor, we're just passing along.
that's fine.
There's a history of sending
And by the
stuff
way,
up,
we have a new police chief.
local and doable, that the town just said,
Yeah.
we can't, the
Yeah.
police won't do it, we can't talk to the Board of Ed, that's out of our hands. And it's been, and there's plenty more, and it's like, well, we still keep at it, we don't give up. But it's just been a bunch of
It's disheartening,
proposals,
I understand.
low-hanging fruit, totally within our control, within our town, that would make a difference. No.
Jonathan, you mentioned the August 22nd
The council.
council meeting.
Yeah.
And the possibility you wanted some examples or ideas that could be put into ordinances for?
Well, listen, everything in government takes a long time. You all know that. It's like all of our frustration. Things are deliberative. I get every time I start, because I get kind of hyper sometimes, as you guys all know. And then sometimes I get like a little to it, and then everybody wants us to slow down because it's supposed to run slowly, right? You can't just pass an ordinance in one night. It's supposed to be reviewed by a committee system in most places. There's got to be some processing. In an ideal world, you guys would have an opportunity to review some of the stuff that we're doing. I don't know how that's gonna happen between now and August 22nd with people's vacations and whatever else is going on. I just wanna do something that's easy, if there's something easy to be done.
For instance, I printed it out, I left my notebook in the car, I'll grab it in a second, but the last couple of weeks, Homedale passed an ordinance about invasive species and native plants. So any development that happens in the town, now the developers have to plant native species only, no invasive species allowed. And it's very,
Sounds
I mean,
reasonable.
that printed out the
That sounds-
ordinance, it's a very straightforward, easy, I mean, it's
So-
not that much
and maybe
harder
we
to
could get
put in
other-
a native plant than it is to put in an invasive
Correct.
plant.
Again, if that's something that's possible, I'd have to see it, obviously, without, you just
Yeah.
taking your word for it. That's the kind of thing that we could talk to others about. I mean, this is a deliberative process. We've got to consider what the right ones. There are some things you named that, as I'm thinking, I see some of the obstacles that potentially came up, although I don't, and I'm sure you could too. I mean, you've worked in government for a long time, you know how these things work. But some of the stuff seems perfectly reasonable you raised. I mean, I don't want to speak for the police, but we have a new police chief, and perhaps that's a conversation that could be had that's just information, so you have some understanding of what we would save if one day we did go green, for example, on our vehicles.
Yeah, is it worth it? I mean, it may not be. I mean, if
Maybe-
they don't drive them much, then the money on an electric car may not be worthwhile. Maybe
Until the cost goes down
put the
and becomes.
money into an
right.
electric school bus, because the kids are in
But that's
heavy
but that's
diesel.
the Board of Ed's, I was just talking to someone who who's very close to an electric school bus company, and they were talking about how incredibly transformative, obviously, that would be if that could happen, but there's a huge concern about the ability of the grid to handle all those buses statewide at the same time being
That's
charged.
why,
Being
that's why
charged.
CPB is building a new power plant.
We all want to charge our phones. We all want to charge our phones. We're all worried about the power outage that could occur this week because of the heat. But
Can I
balance
hop
those
in?
interests. Yeah.
All right, so I pulled up our sustainable jersey here. So just under energy, we have energy efficiency for municipal facilities, energy tracking and management, buying electricity from a renewable source. So we could look into, are we buying our electricity from a renewable source? Municipal on-site solar system and municipal geothermal. I don't know how we would do that, but these are just the things. Municipal wind energy system, which I don't think we'll be able to do.
Windmills
But
on our
also,
buildings?
they also have something, community energy initiatives, renewable government energy aggregation. And I talked with Melissa a little bit about that, but then other stuff
Yeah,
came in
that's
that
what
had
happens.
more
But
priority.
unless we prioritize it, it's just gonna go to the next month or the next
Right.
activity or the next
So
borough
there's
administrator.
a lot of stuff here that we could even review under energy, but the thing is, we have to get the administrative people on board. Because even, there was an action of just having a person or having the environmental commission review plans. Like I had asked, not during Melissa and not during Jay, but like going further back, we were not permitted, even though I asked, to have someone or have the environmental commission review plans of things of drainage and things like that, of water impact. And I know that one of our particular developers in town is known for having people having basements that need 2 sump pumps and pumping water out.
Right into the
And I
sink.
brought it a
Into the
few
sewers.
layers back
Yeah.
to the
But
attention.
we did fix
Yes,
that.
right. But I mean, this was something that was happening.
That was happening, and frankly, it was beyond the environmental issue, it was a safety issue.
Right.
Because we were
The
getting
freezing.
ice on our
Yep.
roads.
And
I would
where the
pull out of
children were
Edgar to drop
walking
my
up
kid
from-
off, and my car was sliding
Yeah.
almost into
Yeah.
Main Street.
Yeah.
Well, that's because, but the town would need to have an ordinance for that.
We did,
And they would
we
need-
did for that.
Yeah, okay.
That was what we did.
But some of those things involve telling
Yeah.
a developer, no, you
Yeah,
can't do that.
well, we've been doing that more and more. There's the height issue that we talked about, which
Mm-hmm.
was a developer issue, that's not an environmental one. I'd rather take on some of the checklist stuff. That seems like we could probably codify some of that by requiring them to pick a couple from
They
different
have
categories.
energy subcodes and stormwater subcodes, apropos your discussion of the League of Municipalities, which can be adopted directly by verbatim by the municipality.
So we just have to be, we just have to make sure that, we don't mess something else up that we may have fixed a couple of years ago, like what if we do a whole verbatim change and you replace an entire code with another code. There are some fixes we've made over the years, it's gonna take some work, and then this takes money, and then, we're not, the thing about our town is we have these grand ideas, we have these big ideas for a small town, and we have this huge attitude for a small town, which is great, which is why our environmental commission doesn't have a problem with quorum, at least not recently, right? But the detriment is we want all this work to get done for these things. You gotta pay your planner, you gotta pay your borough attorney, you know, all of a sudden your budget starts to, like, you know, has less room in it, and things you have to do versus the things you wanna do, and that's where we start getting in trouble with our staff. So we're gonna, let me say, let's come up with some things that we think we can do soon. And that's really what I wanted to say originally, Angela. Let's come up with some things that we think we can do soon, get them like addressed. Maybe we can even get them done for August 22nd, at least as a first reading.
Mhm.
And then let's see what, you know,
So
else we can bring to the
So tonight
table.
we should come up with a couple of things.
Well, either tonight or you assign to the, you know, to the
Subcommittee.
the people who know, like, can quickly identify some of this stuff,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
Some of these people, I know you guys are good too, but these guys like are, they, you know, I've talked environmental law with Brian before and my head spins a little bit. But I'm just saying, like, maybe we can come up with a couple things that we can do, and maybe you guys come up with 7 things, and we can only practically right now accomplish 3. We'll hopefully have really good reasons why we can't do the other 4, but we can talk about it, and you guys don't feel like you're hitting that brick wall. Because I really want to engage on some of this. I think it's important, and I do think we can be leaders on these issues with other communities who look to us and say, you know, how'd you guys do this? Could we get those calls? I get those calls all the time. I know the councilwoman gets them from other council members too.
I think I would like to suggest, if you don't mind, to make Dorothy the depository of any ideas and things like that, the ordinance you just talked about, some of the things you
That
mentioned.
seems easy though.
To, right, to take, so that she can have all of that information of whatever we come up with in the
Right, and I'll
next,
bring
you
it
know,
to like
week or two,
Jason and
to
Melissa.
one location, because
Right.
she has that direct line, again, to Jason, to Melissa, to say, these are some of the ideas, and these are things, and where can we do any of these, quickly.
And we're hot, and as it goes to developers, this town is hot enough that we can start making some rules here that they have to follow. And they'll still wanna build here, and they'll still wanna
Mhm.
come here. And hopefully it won't cost them
Absolutely.
that much more money, right? It's, the bottom line is, let's be a little more responsible. I mean, speaking for myself here, and speaking for maybe the council, there's more we can do, and let's try to do it.
Mhm.
Go ahead. Yeah, so if you would send
Yeah.
Dorothy that information, any of the ideas that we.
You just copy all of us, so we can do that, we've done.
Oh, yeah, send it to
before.
everybody, but I would
You
like
can send-
Dorothy to be the
I'll be like the
depository of
holder of all of that
the
stuff,
collator
and then I'll
of these
pass it
things.
along and
Yeah.
we'll get the
Yeah,
ideas
and
going.
again, we're probably not gonna be able to do everything, because there's probably some reason why it's stalled.
So
Some-
what would be the process, like, if you know, Mr. Mayor, Dorothy, for example, mentioned some interesting items under energy. So someone would, obviously, that's something we've discussed and definitely would be on board with. So someone in the council, I guess, would have to decide
Well, that's
which
why-
one they wanna do,
Well,
or?
you know, I'll talk to Jason about some of this energy stuff.
I think we do it as a
in general,
package.
we'll
We can do it
look
as a
through.
package, it's gonna take a long time
Right.
to motion them and to vote,
Right.
to talk about them, to vote on them, but if you guys can do that, and then maybe you can, maybe some of you could, maybe, listen, in an ideal world, we come up with a bunch of things, and then you guys come to a council meeting and present on them. That's the way, that would be an ideal way, a borough council and its committee system would work, where you guys are the experts in some ways, you come, and you with Councilwoman Rasmussen would like present it to the rest of us.
Mhm.
And that would be really a great way, a very healthy way.
And maybe we could break it down to a short-term plans and then long-term plans, like stuff that we think that we can do quickly, and then stuff that takes, some projects take like a year and a half, and that's why Sustainable Jersey
Right.
gives you time. They say if you did something within 2 years, yeah, it takes time, you know, you have to do this piece and this piece and this
Right.
piece.
But part of the issues are like just the work that it takes to do this stuff. So if what we adopt creates work for our staff, that's the part that creates like who's gonna do it,
Sure.
how much time they have to dedicate to it,
Right.
and like how much longer do I wanna work here if I'm gonna be overburdening my plate. Like that's the kind of stuff that we think about as we start to do this stuff. And that's the kind of thing Melissa said, and Jay Muldoon are
Right,
like,
they look at.
what do you think, like, how long do you expect us in a day to be here beyond our work hour? I'm just saying, because that's what happens here. We all have great ideas, but it's gotta be managed. That's why they get upset with us when our agenda gets too big beyond the environmental stuff is just a piece of it. Maybe it should be a bigger piece, but it's just a piece of it.
Right.
All the stuff we've talked about over the years, it's, you know, it's a lot. And we're desirable, which creates work for us, even not brought in by us, by developers. So they come in, we have to now work with them. That becomes a huge project on how we're, like the Golden project alone is a huge time suck for JMO.
Sure.
Yeah.
Constantly dealing with the issues there, and now that the county's involved, the wildlife preserve, that's a great.
It's a fantastic
That's
project.
good. That's just such a great
Yeah.
project. I mean, yeah. But anyway, that's just, what's the thing about just that project, because you guys happen to be somewhat familiar with it, because you've been helpful with it?
Yeah, we're gonna talk about it a little more.
Okay, so that's just like one thing, and you think about only one or two people, Jay's not full-time, right, so it's one or two people to do these things. That's-
Like Jason, not full-time.
I know.
I think he works
I
60
think a
hours
lot
a
of
week.
these issues are already existing, we're not reinventing the wheel. There's boilerplate ordinance that's out there that wouldn't take a lot of effort to adopt.
They just have to be
for Metuchen.
enforced, because the last thing you want is to do all this stuff and just say, it's out there, we did it, and then be done. Like, you gotta put it in place, and then our zoning officials have to understand it, and then our building people have to get it.
But like the energy subcode of the municipal code would require an upgrade of energy conservation in a building if there's a new construction or substantial rebuild, substantial renovation or addition on a building. And it's a model ordinance, League of Municipalities has all those. And you're right, it would involve work, but that's where any of these things, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
None of these things are, fire and forget.
No,
You
no.
could plant 100 trees, and if people cut them down or don't water them, they're dead.
We have that huge tree bank, by the way, that's another thing we can start to talk about. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the shade tree, that might be something we need to put into action a little more, that's been kind of stale lately. So those are.
But I think we used a lot of it when we took down all those trees when we got the grant. We planted about 50 trees.
I don't know, we'll talk to Melissa about it, but I'm just saying, there's things that are just waiting to be done. But you're right, the rubber meets the road with the actual work.
Right.
So we have to be willing to designate some of our staff's time to that and pull it off of other things, which is just the way that management in any organization works.
My daughter and son-in-law replaced French windows on their house in Lakewood, Colorado. The town inspector came and checked the airtightness of it.
Wow.
They needed a permit to put that in, which would be kind of the construction permit Metuchen might require. And they came and made sure it fit because they have an energy subcode, just like the one New Jersey has and Metuchen doesn't. It's the model energy subcode. So, but somebody has to work. Someone had to go to their
Go there,
house
yeah.
and
Well,
look
that's an
and
inspector.
say, oh, they did a
Well,
nice
that's where-
job on
And then
this.
people complain that their permit fees are too high. That's just, these
Understood,
are all the things.
nevertheless, but that, I understand the dynamic, I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
pointing that
But
out,
with-
but that's how it would be.
Yeah, but with respect to existing inspectors, that's an easier thing to kind of put on them, as long as they just know the rules have changed.
You know
Right.
your personnel,
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor.
I just,
and
what
I-
I'm mindful, I mean, I also surround myself with people who are willing to say no to me, because that's where you get yourself in trouble, right? And so Melissa's great at saying, like, I can't do that, or that makes sense, like she tells us that, and when she does, it means something to me. I may push back and say, yeah, but we have to do this, that means something else has to sort of go by the wayside this week. Those are the conversations we have to have.
Okay, so we'll start with brainstorming ideas, copy all of us if you email something out, and we'll have you be the sort of repository of this, and we can all look at some of these ideas and say, is there any of this that's maybe that simple and there's a model ordinance already
Right.
out there that we could easily turn around in the next month and,
Right. We
and
get
get
them
moving.
introduced in August.
Make sense?
Yep.
Sure. Sorry, so my son got locked out at Myrtle. The soccer team is locked out of the new, we got this great new field, and now it's like unable to be used. This is everything. Well, we locked it up for our own kids.
Is it nice?
Okay.
It's nice. It's the same one we had before practically, but it's a little bit more, it's a little newer, a little like more cutting edge technology, whatever else. Hopefully a little more environmentally efficient.
Yeah, never did find out what it was made of, because the other
I'll
was.
find out for you.
Yeah, the Charles
I will-
Field was
I will-
110 tons of crumb rubber.
Rubber.
Just-
Recycled chrome rubber, right?
Recycled,
They
they
only
take all the
dye.
tires and crumble.
Oh, I see.
Yep.
So it's all the chemicals that are in the tire are now in the crumb.
Well, I don't know,
which is in
I
the
don't
field.
know, but I'll find out what it is.
My son used to
It's
come
not-
home with
it's
the
not
little bits of
unsafe.
rubber
I've
in his
asked that
shoes
question.
and his
Just curious
shorts.
what it is. It's not unsafe.
We just want to know, we just asked
From
what
what
is
I've been
it?
told, I mean, my kids play on that field every week,
Mine too,
sometimes
all
two
the
or
little
three.
black bits.
They end up in
You-
the house.
Well, there's as much lead in those as in the paint. What do you think is in the tire?
You're gonna give us a heart attack.
I'm just saying, I mean, that's why we were asking, we're trying to nitpick.
I know, but the new, I mean, I gotta find out.
Find out what the new stuff is, because
Yeah.
I had said to Jay, I had talked to him, that you have to find something more environmentally friendly. So we'll see.
It does end
Okay.
up in the house too.
We were just concerned
It
about
ends up
the
in the
kids'
house, yeah.
exposure to the material and the problem.
Yeah,
That was in our.
I'm concerned about it too, but we had assurances that it was safe, so let me find out.
And it may
what that
be-
means.
And it may be, we just don't know.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, a couple other things on the agenda that we wanted to look at. One was actually to ask you about the rain garden in the parking lot, if anybody had gotten any information back to you, which you already talked about, that you had
Yeah.
reached out to Jay, and now we know we're not there yet
Yeah.
in terms of plans and things. But that's something we'll keep on the agenda and keep on top of, so that we can make sure that all that work that was done doesn't
Yeah.
fall by the wayside.
Right.
And Chris, I talked to Chris Prescott at Rutgers,
At Rutgers.
and he's gonna follow up with the schools to make sure that they're maintaining them properly.
Okay.
So he's still very much involved, and, he got back to me right away, so.
Oh, that's good, because they
And I
can
told him to
get
keep us in mind if there's any additional
Money.
funding they need to use up.
Yep. Okay, well, that's good. Tommy's Pond, I think we all saw the emails that were floating around that we did not get the grant that we had applied for to hopefully
Right.
be able to do some things with the scout at Tommy's Pond.
Maybe we could get sponsors or something, maybe.
How much are we talking about?
Well, I
Remember-
mean, one of the pieces of it, in addition to plantings, which maybe would have to be on hold, was whether or not there's a couple of devices that, if we had a volunteer group of 10 people, a couple of times over the summer, people could go out and essentially rake the weeds, to do some like visual
Rake the,
Out of the pond.
out of the
well,
pond.
we rake the weeds out of the pond?
Because have you
Right.
seen the pond?
Well, it gets green.
Right.
Yeah.
But isn't a lot of that's from the runoff from pesticides, right?
Yep.
A lot of it.
And
Right, I mean, there's other
fertilizer,
aspects to
fertilizer.
what a project should look like as a whole, but.
Yeah, how much
so
did we apply for? What was the amount?
It was 1,500, I think.
Yeah, so 1,500 to get plantings and stuff that would help soak that up and keep it from going in there. That's what we're
The
looking for.
the volunteers are tricky to rely on for those kinds of things, like you get the garden club and they.
No, but we had a Boy Scout who had already achieved his eagle, and he wanted to do another project, and he had this whole plan made out, but we applied for the grant for him to get the materials. to do
Right,
some of the
yeah, it was-
plantings.
That was a long-term ability to clean up that.
It was a two component
Not really.
kind of thing. Part of it was doing plantings that would help as the runoff would come down. You would have plants that would uptake the stuff before it hit
Oh.
into the,
Like a rain garden?
sort of like a rain garden type thing.
But
And
it's
also
a- it's a
educational
fertilizer
aspects
garden.
for
They really grow, sure.
for people in the neighborhood because of all the runoff from the lawns and from
Mhm.
the
Right.
fertilizers and different things.
So we thought like an educational portion, because the thing is, the people in the neighborhood don't like the way the pond looks, but they don't realize that it's their fertilizer of
Oh,
making
yeah.
their lawns look
I remember seeing
perfect
something on
that is
social media about
causing
that.
it.
Yeah.
So if we could give an educational portion to them and say, listen, when you put the fertilizer on there, it runs down into the pond, and that's why we get it, and it's a never-ending battle. If we could get them to cut back or be more, what's the word I'm looking, like more careful about the use of it and stuff like that, maybe we could abate the problem somewhat.
Part of that could be something that we take on in a bigger picture is more educational for the entire town
Mhm.
about what tying into invasive species and using native plants, like instead of your super duper green lawn that you're paying, ChemLawn to come in and do whatever,
True green, they changed their names, so there's
Yeah.
no word chem.
true, yeah, whatever.
They call it true green now.
True
not
green?
They want to take the word chem or chemicals
Of
out
course.
They kept the font the same, if everybody who's still familiar with them. though.
Yeah. So maybe there's an opportunity to make that a bigger proposal, maybe the next, Earth Day or the next farmer's market or something, put it in a topic of something that we can do. But for right now, I don't really know where to go with that without any kind of funding. It's difficult
Yep.
for getting that to move forward.
We've talked to DPW about what they can do, because we could just have them plant some stuff too.
Right, but we have to buy the plants.
Yeah, but
And the thing is, well, maybe we could talk with DPW and with Ned and see what the plantings were, because he had a whole plan. This kid came up with a plan.
What's Ned's last name?
Rosanna, he lives on the corner of School Street and Center Street.
Okay, well, we could probably find, I mean, I don't know, you know, DPW is obviously stretched thin, but, we could figure maybe.
But the thing is, he can get Boy Scouts to do it. I mean, he has a whole plan.
That
He
stuff
doesn't-
disappears with the winter and then it comes back, is that how the green cycle works? Like this is a
Kind of.
heavy time?
Well, when the
it's a challenge-
fertilizer disappears.
It's challenging with that site, it's a small pond, and over the long term it's hard, but there's things you can do to kind of slow its death, which is there's a runoff from the lawns.
When you slow its death,
Just what I meant.
the pond from like disappearing?
Well, it'll become a nice fertile area.
It'll become Lucille
Nice,
Ball Pond.
it'll become nice black soil and a good farm field in 100 years or two. No, but in terms of,
To extend its life beyond our lifetimes, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah.
For future
Yeah,
generations?
there's runoff down the lawns, and then there's runoff in the pipe that comes in, and then there's no shade on the south and west side, so it gets hot and a lot of runoff. So the
Green
idea
algae
is,
grows.
and it has the algae that grows in there that then dies and falls to the bottom and rots and makes it worse. So things you can do, plant right on the edge, try to do a little rain garden thing at the intake.
To
Put
stop,
some shade
like
trees.
defense kind of.
Right, exactly, put some shade trees are on the west side and south side, and then go out and physically remove algae. Those are all things.
You
that
need
can
like
be
a
done.
Tommy's Pond czar or something, somebody who's like you, who can be like, okay, do this, it'll cost this much, we need this kind of.
Well, I mean, he came up with the plan, I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
Ned had a plan, and it's, you know, that's just one of the things that.
For $1,500, we really should not do it for $1,500. If in fact it would help Tommy's Pond, which is obviously an institution in the borough, so we should talk about that.
Yep.
Yeah, because if we could get the funding in it, Ned, part of his, project would be getting other.
Yeah, we're not
people
supposed to be
involved and stuff.
supporting like individual scout project, they're supposed to be raising that money, and he shouldn't have, $1,500.
But this is interesting, it's not an Eagle Scout project, he's already has his Eagle Scout.
He said it's a second
This
project.
is and I forget what he called it.
Yeah. But it's really him wanting to do something as a scout to help the borough.
All right.
And he came up with this idea.
He's a high school kid?
Yeah,
He's a high school kid, his Eagle Scout
High school kid's
project,
gonna be in college and he won't
No.
be here.
he's only a sophomore?
yeah.
Still, 2 years from now, who's gonna
Yeah.
manage it?
Why don't you worry about that in 2 years?
Because I'm gonna tell you, I had my lesson with Eagle Scout projects, where we have them and then they're left for dead. So they create bigger problems in some cases than they were. They seem really nice when they were built. This happens all the time in
Yeah, it
schools
does,
especially.
that's true, but still,
Mhm.
right, do
But
something
we
now
can
and
take
worry
some
about the
steps.
other problem in 2 years.
Well, fortunately, his project involves planting, would involve planting native vegetation appropriate for the site, as opposed to building something that requires maintenance. It wouldn't be a structure, it would be.
Right, and if we
plants.
plant trees in the appropriate area to shade it, then those trees will always be there. No one has to like put shade there. The trees will be there to shade it.
Plus all our resident deer get at them.
Right, well, another discussion.
But that's a different discussion. All right, well, let's, Ned's plan had a lot of the plantings listed, and also we can take another
Yeah,
look at
so
that
we have a
and see
list
if
of all
we
the
can
plantings and the stuff.
cost it out and see where we can go from there. Let's talk about the postponed Earth Day event, which happened at the Goulton site. We had about 8 or so people that came out and traversed the woods with you guys. I was there at the beginning, but I did not walk the woods because I had a previous commitment, but you want to talk about what you saw out in the swamp? Well, DPW was there with the garbage truck. Rick, who's the new,
Rick from Rec.
Rick from Rec, I can't remember his last name, the new guy.
Karine?
Yes, Rick Perrine came and he brought snacks and water for everybody, and we took a bunch of pictures of things, and then the Intrepids over here went out into the woods. You were there, Pete, weren't you? So they went out into the woods, and what'd you find?
Well, we cleared the trail and picked up litter. It's a big area back there, I don't know if you've been.
This is the area that will eventually be part of the,
Beyond the fence, beyond the railroad.
Yeah,
Right.
downstream past the railroad embankment.
is it in
It's
Metuchen?
Metuchen for a little bit, and then it moves.
The
it
part
down,
that's
so-
Metuchen will
Yeah.
actually be, will hopefully be maintained
Part
and
of it,
managed by
part.
the county.
And what about Edison, are they going to be part of that,
We're- let's get this done, and we can lead the paths right to the edge and then see if they wanna pick them up.
Okay.
It's a county, the county's gonna be, you know, helping to pay for those improvements and managing those improvements.
Okay.
So that's a positive sign, obviously, to the
Yes.
extent that they wanna continue that work. We can make, this is somewhat of a pilot, right? If we make this successful and it becomes a real success, it's not like you need Conrail to go along with it. You know, this
No.
is something that is within the control of the
Right.
townships along
That's
as they
right.
operate the property. So
That's right, there's county property, Gulton property, and Borough property.
there won't be any county property.
Well, I'm just saying about from the Greenway.
Actually, there will,
Like if you-
there will be county property, sorry. There will be some county property that's purchased from, sorry, there will
From
be county
Gulton.
property that's purchased from
Gulton,
well, the current entity, right? Like the Ellis Block's entity, that's his name, guy was. And then the property that's currently ours is gonna remain ours, but we're gonna have a maintenance agreement where they maintain it because our DPW is not gonna be able to keep up with the work that's there.
Right.
Is that just what's in the fence? Is that what?
No,
that's
what's in the
what's
fence is the reason that's fenced off is because the trees, those baby trees that were
Yeah.
planted last December, which is like 6,000 or something like that.
Yeah, it was
So
thousands
think
of
three-
trees,
I
right?
mean, some,
3,000
3,000, sorry, I doubled the number.
No,
It'd be great to have
no, but
efficiency.
it's a fantastic replanting area.
Yeah, so that's to keep the deer
deer out
out.
And
from
they're all
destroying the
native
trees.
species.
Right, we made sure of that.
Shrub.
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
heard that, and that was I think the project, by the way, the actual project itself is gonna be pretty environmentally efficient. That's gonna be, there's gonna be solar and some other,
Oh, yeah.
you know, bits. They understood what we were trying to convey for that area and turn it into something special and green looking and feeling and actually green, not just, but, you know, but that was, the fence is just around the trees.
Okay.
So it goes well beyond that. In fact, if you looked on your Google Maps, if you have a phone like with Google Maps, and then you just saw like where you were, and you saw how far, when you get a sense of how far you actually are from the Edison border,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so we went down and, you know, cleared the trail. It needs periodic clearing.
That's nice.
And we actually saw John Wiley at an event with Walt Stochel subsequently. And he said the Dismal Swamp Commission is considering getting a brush hog, which is a great tool to.
Brush hog.
A
A
brush
brush
hog
hog.
is dimensionally an industrial grade mower.
Wow.
And it can
Brian, that's
basically.
kind of news to me.
Okay, well.
Yeah, the chairwoman.
The chair, no,
I don't-
commission.
I don't know if it was suggested,
Okay.
That's Pat
maybe,
Dognan
you
for
know,
another green.
sometimes, Brian, you know how people sometimes have side conversations when you're in a meeting?
Yeah.
And so people are in the meeting, but someone else is having their own meeting, that could have been the case.
But they're not gonna, that's a long-term, like, that's gonna be, in 2 years, that's gonna be managed anyway by the, you know, like, you guys will be taking your hikes there, but you're not gonna have much work to do, God willing, because it'll be
Okay.
managed the way that we expect with boardwalk trails and other.
But then there's the Edison property downstream.
Well, the Edison property is another aspect, but this is not the, you guys aren't the Edison Environmental
Okay.
Commission. So I'm just saying, like, that'll become a
Right.
different person's
Well, we
problem.
cleared it.
That's nice.
The section of trail and took out a bunch of.
Well, listen,
litter, and
there's
it
still
looked-
2 years for people to traverse back there before it
Right.
actually gets built up, so.
Mhm.
And there's a constant flow of water through there, which is nice, so, yeah, it was a pleasant outing,
And it's been cleaned up.
yeah.
Yeah, and they've done a really good job with that cleanup. The company has really stepped up and done
They
it.
spent
they did a
$10
good
million
job.
on
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, maybe then take the boys
That's a Tuesday for
kayaking,
me.
Jonathan, take the boys kayaking next
I
time.
don't think
Okay.
it's, I don't think that bridge is tall enough.
Yeah.
It's, but there isn't a water level, right? Like you
The
could.
water level's higher now than it used to be, but it only needs to drop a little for you to go on.
Oh.
We've gone
You
through.
done that, Peter?
Huh?
You
No,
kayak?
what I'm saying is that it's not kayakable right now because it's 3 or 4
There's
more
so much,
kilometers downstream.
yeah, there's so much debris in that stream and, well, litter, obviously, and fallen trees, I mean,
Even now?
Mhm.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Downstream.
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 Yeah, we got to the first
Okay.
one.
I
It's
mean,
about 4
that
more.
stream could be so pretty, but there, I mean, it's kind of a mess.
How, do you think it's like a big expensive cleanup or is it just like a volunteers kind of cleanup?
Well, there's some pretty big
Heavy
trees
equipment, yeah.
in that,
Heavy
you know,
equipment.
needs.
Well, maybe we can add
it's
that
not
to
a
what the county
volunteer
does.
thing.
It does on the Metuchen side?
Yeah.
I mean, I would presume that if that's really a feature to this, we should probably maybe prioritize that.
Talk to Rick Lear, maybe.
It's gonna be $1 million, it's gonna be $1 million to make the improvements, you know, that was really for the boardwalk trails and for the signage and we're gonna do some historical signage and some trail markers.
That's great.
It's gonna be a lovely park when
It's
it's
just periodic removal, like
I
fallen
understand.
trees. because it's marshy ground and the trees fall over, it's not a big deal. But one time to get it cleared and then periodically thereafter.
Okay.
And there's a few big things back and a few truck.
I'm sure the
drivers
county
and
knows
stuff.
how to do that if they really had to.
Yeah.
And could you just, since the issue came up about the Greenway, I forget the timing on, you said you did get a response from Conrail to the letter.
So, yeah,
Can
you
you
guys
just
helped
repeat
that.
that for
So I
everyone?
got a response from Conrail, basically, don't bother us right now with this. It was kind of an obnoxious letter. It was like with the influx of, the economy of shipping and everything else, we're too busy to react to this. So I called Congressman Pallone's office. He's the chair of the Energy and Commerce Committee, the House Energy and Commerce Committee, and I asked if he could try to help. They tried, their office tried. I did escalate it to a request for Congressman Pallone to speak to his colleague as the chair of the Transportation Committee, just as a colleague to colleague thing to call and see if he can get Conrail on the phone. I told him I'd be willing, I think their headquarters are in Philadelphia, that this summer I'd be willing to take the train down to Philadelphia and meet with them directly. This is one of those things they literally just have to pay attention to for 5 minutes, and I would think they could just then send it to their attorneys or whatever, but it was just so, so I think the best way to do it is what we're doing right now. I guess theoretically we could also contact Cory Booker and Bob Menendez's office on this, but we're trying to get the CEO on the phone to be able to say this is a small little thing for you guys, it's a huge thing for them. It's a great service for you to just focus on.
Well, aren't they coming in for federal money to remove supply chain bottlenecks, i.e. facilitate importing goods from China?
Possibly.
So what about strings,
Yeah, I would assume that the person I spoke to was coordinating. You know how this works. You've been in government too long, Brian. I keep talking to Matt Mantecchio, who's the district director for Palone.
Yeah.
And I could speak to, I don't want to undermine Matt because I've been speaking with him. I could call the congressman, I guess, but I want to work through the proper channels. I also, I guess we could contact Booker or Menendez's office, but again, it's just a sign-off issue. We've already had the appraisal and the environmental work and all those other things that were done by the county, I think 2 years ago. So it's frustrating.
I guarantee you Conrail's getting taxpayer money at this time for transportation issues.
I'm sure they are, especially with the infrastructure bill.
The thing that they claim is keeping them so busy, one of those ways is to ask for and spend our money.
It was a frustrating response.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, thank you for reaching out.
Well, if you guys send me a letter to send that actually has, some force of, like we've had this conversation about the behind St. Joe's a million times.
Oh, the
Arsenic
arsenic.
Center.
Yeah, if you guys sent me that meeting, that, you prepped it well, I think, but that's, we were banging our heads against the
Yeah.
wall on that, but if there's something in the town that you think we can be effective and better advocates,
We need
tell
to,
us.
we need to circle back with the DEP commissioner on that, because
Oh.
he's been notably silent on that, on the arsenic side.
It's a different commissioner now, too.
Yeah, that may make a difference.
Happy to help.
Mhm. Okay. The next thing on my list was actually Dismal Swamp, so are you buying a bush hog?
Well, I don't know if we'll buy one now. I think it's like a dream of men to have all those manly tools. I certainly will not be using it if we buy one. But right now, we're really talking about signage. What?
But there are a lot of, it's a lot of fun to use.
I think
Yeah.
John's gonna mow his lawn or
Yeah.
something like that. with it.
So we have had discussions about signage and starting to improve the Songbird Trail. We're gonna start on the Songbird Trail and then going, I guess, as far as we can.
Is that the trail that starts up in Edison where the big
Yes.
sign is, right? The
Yeah.
one that
Yes.
says Peter J. Barnes Preserve and all?
Right, and then we wanna improve, there's a sign there that has information, we kind of replace it with something that's maybe lit up with LED, has information about it, pictures of the trail of where they would be going. And we also think that we can do something handicap-wise for people, because that's kind of a pretty flat, straight way in, maybe people couldn't go in further, but we're hoping to do that. And then we were talking about signage. But if the county's gonna be doing signage, like in the Metuchen area and on the other side by Golden, maybe we can see what signs that, the county is doing, and maybe we can get the same signage so that everything is, uniform. You know, so that's kind of what we
But
were talking
that portion
about.
at that end is owned by Edison, right? The property up where you're talking about Songbird Trail and that
Yeah,
part, that's
yeah.
Edison.
And
or
also,
South
we
End.
had 2 members of the EPA, 2 women came to our meeting, talking about, I think, the Tyler Road, cleanup, and they kind of came to kind of give us, an update on what's going on with that, so that they came to our last meeting.
What are they gonna do? Have they backed off from their plan to excavate the dump?
Yeah, they said that they're still like working on the plans for it. That they weren't even sure which way, I mean, these 2 women that came there, they said that they were like from a, you know, I guess a local office and all.
And
So-
what's next in terms of planning jurisdictions? I mean, now that the meets and bounds are established, what happens? What's
Oh,
kind of the
master
next step
plan.
in that?
The next step is gonna be the master plan. And that's something we're gonna be, you know, getting, an entity to work on the master plan. Like, we have that preliminary master plan, the one that was done years ago by, Princeton Hydro. So we're gonna start with that and, you know, work on that and get
I
started.
have to go home because my wife isn't home and my son is still awake and by himself, so
Okay.
I have to just go home. But I want to just thank everybody, and if there's other follow-up on this, and anything else, like, let us know. I think we could do some stuff here. I appreciate you guys.
Yep,
having-
I'll be getting any information and ideas, and I'll be bringing them up the line.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for
Thank you,
joining us.
Jonathan.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Okay.
Yeah, so, yeah, basically, they were really talking about the area of concern, and to kind of bring us to an update of where the work would be done and how much work and whatever, but nothing specific about, excavating versus not
They were,
excavating.
yeah, they said basically they've been forced to repeat the study,
There you go.
Really? Why?
Pete was there.
because there's not enough money. So they're looking for other, the notes I have said, since 2019, no progress, they're looking for other remedies. And they're now in the process of repeating the study to see whether or not a cap is feasible or not.
Which site is this?
Woodruff, isn't it?
Yeah, the Tyler Road Woodwork.
That's really
Yeah.
frustrating.
Yeah,
So it's just leaving it there, just one more site where it's left.
so, yeah.
The
But
original
potentially-
plan had been to physically excavate, as you probably know, to
Right.
physically excavate and remove the landfill, the solid waste back there, some of which contains hazardous materials, and to restore the wetland on the site.
Right.
And now it's like just one more, leave it there to fester.
Well, it's not, they're not leaving it there yet. They're in a these particular people are in a position where they have to repeat the
No, I
study,
understand.
right? Because of the history of the site, because it was originally a farm, right? And the original farmer is long gone. There's no money there for them to go after.
Yeah, I don't know who all, did the dumping and whether
Well,
there's any
the
responsible
farmer,
party.
the farmer would get paid money to take all of the environmental stuff from the local, companies that were polluting and didn't know what to do with their stuff.
This
and
is
he
the
said,
story of why I have a career in
Yes.
Superfund.
Right.
Because some farmer somewhere said, I got a field out back,
Right.
pay me 20
Doing
bucks and
nothing.
you can
Right.
throw your drums back there.
There you
And
go.
30 years later, I'm cleaning them all up.
But of course, the generators are strictly liable,
Mm-hmm.
and so are the haulers. So every one of those companies and every one of the trucking companies that hauled it is responsible for the cost, even though he's gone.
Yeah.
And I would imagine their studies by now have identified waste from specific companies that are out there. But I hear your point, though, that they may not have sufficient money to do the full thing, and the usual plan B is to cap it and leave it. And we have thousands of those already. It's just so disappointing to have, especially in a place like the Dismal Swamp where it would really make a difference to restore the wetland. It's not like a little patch in an empty empty lot somewhere, it's actually part of the Dismal Swamp. It's just frustrating to see one more paved way.
One other, sort of, close cousin there, Greenway, Dismal Swamp, has been our discussions about the Woodbrook Bond and whether the town could take some actions to try and, I guess, take possession or somehow better protect the property. It's not a sustainable Jersey kind of
Well,
action, but it's
let's-
something.
Let's put this on our list.
Yeah,
Which,
the
This
Woodbrook
would be
Bond
the
at
list,
the,
The Woodbrook Pond.
right
the one-
behind St. Joe's.
oh, the pond behind St. Joe's, right, yeah.
And the parcel that hasn't had taxes paid on it
Right,
for
right.
Right,
years and, you
yeah,
know.
we'll put that all on the list, because that could be something easy if the county, if we could
I mean, it
get
just
that and just give it to the county.
seems
Well, that,
rather
and that was
low-hanging.
the, what I understood was the thought on that and the plan was if we were to take it for the taxes, then give it to the county as part of the Greenway extension.
Right, unfortunately, it's not going
But the
that far
extension's not
at the
going there.
moment,
But
but
they
it
might
doesn't
be able to
mean,
do something with it
Right.
and develop it into something.
right, I
you
mean,
know,
it still
make
fits with the Dismal Swamp being right there, the
Right.
Greenway
Right.
extension coming close.
And it's right next to the Dismal Swamp.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
viewed from
Yeah.
that perspective,
Right,
it's
And
right
it ain't
there.
there yet, and I know the county is settling to only go as far as forest at this
Right.
point, but still ideally would like to go
Would like to
further.
go all the way up there, yeah.
So hopefully someday, that will happen. Doesn't mean in the meantime, it would be a good thing to make
for
sure
them
it's
to
protected.
get it and to do something with it, to make it, an area for people to go to, because certainly people on the other side in Edison that live in that development.
Yeah, or at
there-
least make sure it's protected.
Right,
Right,
Right, when in doubt, get a hold of the land.
yes.
Don't wait till the.
right,
all the
because in
pieces
theory,
are in place.
whoever is the actual owner that's not paying the taxes could sell it and
Yep.
who knows what'll happen with it,
Mhm.
yeah.
It could become Lucille
Lucille
Ball two.
Bolton
Yeah.
2. Don't know where that stands
The
either.
sequel, the sequel. All right.
Alright, that was my list of, one question for you, and I'm looking off the top of your head, if you still have Sustainable Jersey open. I have not looked at our, actions in a while, in
Mhm.
terms of, when's the next cycle, do you remember off the top of your head?
The thing is, if we didn't apply in June.
Right, I know it's not like this cycle, so it would be next spring?
June, yeah, next
Okay.
spring. We have time, now we can look at actions, we have time to get projects,
Right.
underway.
Okay.
We should go after the school board as well, since they're gonna be asking everybody for a ton of money this year,
Mhm.
and to see what sustainable elements they can improve, they can put into the huge.
Now, the
building
schools
projects.
got a,
Cause they're also.
the schools did the Sustainable Jersey
Jersey
for
for
Schools thing,
Schools.
they got a certification last year too, right?
They
I
did,
just
I
don't
don't know,
remember.
I have no idea, I mean, I have 2 kids in the district, I have no idea who's on that. There's no communication, at least to parents, about
And then all of a
who
sudden,
does that.
there
And
it
all of a
was,
sudden
it
I
said,
think,
oh, we're certified.
Certified, so I don't
So-
know who's involved with that. There's
And
no,
neither do I.
no invitation to get involved, and I've never heard of anybody that is involved. I don't know who does it. I don't know if it's the school
God,
administration.
maybe it's the science teachers or somebody,
I don't know, somebody at the Board of Ed.
maybe if they have an environmental club,
I mean, there is an environmental club at the high school, that I know, and there's an
Yeah.
environmental science
So-
teacher, but I don't
so
know that they're,
Campbell
No
School got-
communication between the borough and the Board of Ed?
Well, this
No.
is their own thing, they're separate from
there's
us as far as
Sustainable
the
Jersey
Sustainable
programs
Jersey.
for schools.
Right,
No, I
it's a
understand,
separate
but there's
program.
communications, I mean, it's such a fly-speck town.
Yeah.
It's so funny that it's as if we're talking about a university in another country.
Yeah,
It's the
Right, I
school over
know.
here on Grove Avenue, it's
Right.
half a mile from here.
Right, but Jenna's saying, as a
as a
parent,
parent, I hear nothing.
no,
There's no-
and there's an announcement that this sustainability thing was done and the schools got certified to do it, but there was nothing that was like
Right.
coming to the parents in the every weekday,
I don't
I mean,
know.
every
But then
week
that,
emails or
that's
whatever.
something that maybe ask at a, a PTO meeting or something, saying,
Yeah.
how come you guys are getting certified and the parents don't know anything about it?
They've never asked for help as far as I know.
Yeah,
And I'm
Someone's
sure they would
doing
have
it.
parents that would step up
Right.
and help. do some of these things.
So they're
But-
really kind of what totally autonomous, the Board of Ed is
Yeah,
unto itself.
Well, and that's typical for most towns, I believe, that, you know, the Board of Ed is a separate entity, and the Board of Ed, and I don't know the specifics for Metuchen, but usually, you know, the Board of Ed owns the school buildings, and those properties, they're not borough properties, usually, they're separate entities.
Right, but I mean in terms
Yeah.
of, no, I understand that, but I mean in terms of being responsive. For example, Pete's pointing out they'll be coming to us to vote on a tax increase.
Right.
For their expenditures, so there is some accountability, some responsiveness. Is that the only response, is to vote no on their request for money?
I
Or
believe
is
so,
that it?
because the town is not funding the Board of Ed, other than the town is collecting the taxes that are allocated to the Board of Ed.
Okay.
So the money is going through the town, because we pay our taxes all in one, but I don't believe it's not like subsidized, it's not like the
There's not like
town
meetings
is-
between the town and the Board of Ed,
No, I believe in most cases they're running their own show.
totally separate, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And their budget is their budget, and whether the referendum passes or not, you know, that's what their budget is for the year of whatever. And they moved a couple years back, remember the state moved Board of Ed elections around so that it coincided with November elections, because
Right.
Board of Ed elections were not getting a lot of attention when they were in April unless people were voting, so they tied them in. I don't remember if that was across the state or not, but
Well, I think each municipality.
municipality had the
to do
option
it.
to, or
Right.
had to do, yeah, so then those elections are the same time as the November elections, so that it all happens at once. And that gets more people voting on Board of Education issues, because they figure more people are gonna go vote in a November election than make an extra trip in April.
Cause I'm looking for the sustainable jersey for schools here on their website. I'm not
I definitely
seeing-
remember seeing an announcement when they got certified last year,
Yeah,
you know, that the schools did
Well,
that.
I'm
Was it
just
the
seeing
district,
these-
or was it, I thought it was
does it
Campbell
have a
School.
different website?
Like one school maybe? I don't remember if it goes by district or if it goes by,
Yeah.
um,
No, I remember,
school by school.
Right.
Look it up and see.
Somewhere in the card,
I didn't remember either, but
It's possible,
Yeah.
it surprised me.
Sustainable Jersey Schools.
Kevin Steiner never said
Will it work? I don't know.
All right.
Anyway, yeah, it's just a topic, I'm just curious. Going back through agenda, that's the.
Just Campbell School.
It was
It
Campbell's.
was just Campbell
They
School.
got a $10,000 grant from an email from Udo.
Oh, they got a $10,000 grant for sustainable, for what?
But I don't know, doesn't actually specify.
This
It's
is,
just
okay.
from sustainable operations.
Wow.
Oh, it's.
Somebody's doing something. Somebody's doing some work.
Dude, somebody's doing something.
Maybe, I don't have any kids at Campbell, so maybe
Oh, okay.
Campbell parents get information, but
Possibly.
they don't send it out of the district.
Okay. All right.
Well, we certainly have no shortage of issues that we can ask the borough to look into.
Sure.
All right, that was the end of my list of things. Any other old business anybody wants to?
A couple of quick
Talk about.
questions. There was remember apropos the Dismal Swamp Commission,
Mhm.
there was an application to put in a pool in the wetlands transition area along Durham Avenue.
Right.
Any idea, do you know whether either the borough or the Dismal Swamp Commission weighed in on that?
I know that at the time of the application, it was within the purview of the borough.
Okay, do you know if they did
I
anything with it?
don't know if they got it or didn't get it.
And,
That was a house on Dorby's or?
a house on
Yeah,
Durham,
Durham.
wanted to apply for a permit to put in I forget what we got, if it was an application to the town, or if it was or it might have been an application to the DEP for a letter of interpretation. But they wanted, they had backyard, they backed into the Dismal Swamp, not far from past Gulton,
Okay.
and they were planning to install an in-ground pool in the wetland transition area.
Okay.
And So that's gonna be a big issue, and usually is with wetlands, is people nibbling around the edge.
Right.
And
Yeah.
encroaching, because before you know it, the pool gets a cabana, gets a deck, gets a shed.
And people do
those
stuff
trees
that's not
drop leaves in the
approved.
pool, and they shade it, so we cut them down, and before you know it, you get the encroachments. And so that's why it's, it sounds harsh to say, no, you can't build an in-ground pool in the transition area, to say it's only water, who cares? Then the way it actually works is as described, and swamp gets smaller.
Well, on I was gonna say on this and a couple of others, I was gonna circle back on the proposal with the church, the cemetery property.
Oh, the one by the cemetery, yeah.
But I think all these bring up the lack of having a planning board liaison.
Yeah.
Because, obviously, that's the most germane conversation.
Right.
I should have brought that up when Jonathan was
Yeah.
here.
Right, because the idea of doing some kind of a trail, some kind of arrangement where the developer agrees to preserve a strip of land through the woods along the stream.
Right.
So there's access for kids to get from the playing fields to the greenway. Right now, kids basically hop the stream and then cut through the cemetery to get to the playing fields.
So what we heard was officially there's nothing into the town yet, but there's obviously discussions, there was a request for a letter of interpretation. John Wiley, who lives across the street from where the proposal is, has feelings both ways. He's following it because he lives right there.
Mhm.
But is also involved with some of the people who are, possibly developing the property. So I think he's got some mixed issues on it. But that was one of the things that he talked about is, okay, if it's not gonna be a no, it's, okay, how do we make this better? How do we make it less intrusive to the greenway, less intrusive, perhaps beneficial in some other ways?
I mean, I'd settle for a planning board member, even if they can't come to any Wednesday meetings, just somebody that could look at what they're looking at and know when they need to send us some information. Like when
Right.
Lynn couldn't make a meeting, but she knew something was
Like
talked about,
going on.
she would say, I got this information. And,
Yeah.
And also,
here it
environmental
is.
commissions are supposed to have input on development plans in town. And we've largely been frozen out over the years because it's been clear that we displease the developers with our input.
Mhm.
And that's pretty obvious, but pretty unnecessary. I think the town undersells itself to think it's not a desirable destination, and we need to carve out a couple of
Right.
the
Well, that's
same
what I said to
developers-
Jonathan. I
the
said,
same
why do we not
developers
review
become-
plans?
Right, I mean,
That was one of the Sustainable Jersey actions, and I
well,
always
it's,
gotta know.
it's part of the environmental commission statute. It's just that, we upset developers when we say, how come you don't set aside this, how come you don't do something about the stormwater, how come you don't upgrade the insulation in the building? It's like, and that's why the town hasn't adopted the model ordinances that are available free from the big municipalities that the mayor made reference to. We've asked this all before and been told the same thing. Our buildings will crumble, developers will run, we'll be in the middle of a hellhole.
Mhm.
No one will ever want to live here. Oh, thank God. And taxes will go up.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list of members that's here. I mean,
On the planning board?
yeah, obviously Jonathan can come, Melissa can't come, Linda can't come, Lynn Nowak can't come.
Are there other boards that have liaisons like that? I'm not sure if there's other
What do you mean?
cross-fertilization types of.
I don't know.
I never
mean, it
even
makes a lot of
wondered about it.
sense.
We've always had one, but I never really
Yeah.
thought about.
Makes a lot of,
So
you
there's,
talk about Board of Ed and
so
and
Jonathan
town, it would seem
Lipton
to
is
make
on
sense
it,
to have a
Alan
report to the
Grossman.
council.
I know
on it.
his wife is sick.
Yeah.
She's sick, so he can't, he's not on. Eric Erickson is the chair, I don't know. Why don't you
Next door
talk to
neighbor.
Eric? Why don't you talk to Eric?
Okay.
We'll do that. You'll
We'll talk to Eric, he's our
Eric
neighbor.
lives next door to her, the chair.
Oh.
Okay.
So, I think that'll make things much easier.
Yeah, we'll just talk to Eric.
Just talk
and
over the fence, that's all.
Talk over the fence. After I get him to remove the invasive bamboo that he planted on his side of the fence.
I know. I know.
But that's another whole story. Actually, it probably wasn't his idea, it was probably his wife's idea, but that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I have very good neighbors, I really do. I just want to kill them with the bamboo.
I know, because I keep looking to see when is it gonna start sprouting on your side.
It has, and we're gonna cut some of it down and use it at my camp next week for the show. Since we're doing Moana
Okay.
Junior, we're gonna cut off everything on my side of the yard the day before the show and take it to the theater and use it as a backdrop in the show,
There you
and
go.
then throw it out.
You can get loads of bamboo on the greenway,
Yeah.
right by the cemetery.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
there's
there's,
lots of it.
there's a metal place there. I rarely recommend herbicide, but I strongly recommend using some Roundup on that bamboo.
So if I go on a greenway and I start cutting down bamboo,
Right.
is the county gonna get mad at me?
I've
No.
seen other people do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they will probably give you a gold
Just
star.
stomp on,
That's how I got the bean
stomp
poles in
on
our
lantern
garden.
flags while you're
Because,
at it.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
literally, I'm doing, so this camp I'm doing is a production of Moana Junior, so we're trying to decorate like the theater space with different things, and my husband's suggestion, because I said that bamboo's gotta go, he goes, I'd cut it down, but what if I wait until the
Why
day
don't you
before
ask
your
Eric
show
for some?
and cut it
Ask
down?
Eric for some.
And we'll use it on, because once it's cut, we don't, then it'll die, but whatever, so we'll take it there and do that, but I didn't know there was more on the greenway by the
Yes.
cemetery, I haven't
Yeah.
been there a while, I can go
You
down
know
there
that-
and cut down a whole bunch
Yeah,
of
the
bamboo.
metal warehouse
Next to
across
that
the
big warehouse,
greenway
right.
from it.
Right.
Behind there, it's huge.
Yeah, somebody's cut that down, but
Yeah.
there's about 100 yards been slashed.
Oh, really?
All the way back to the wall, yeah. There's
It's
still,
worth
there's still a
walk,
healthy
it's a
stand
bike ride,
there.
find out.
It was.
But see if.
It's all gone?
Eric will give you some.
Well,
Yeah.
there's still just before the building starts, there's a stand there, and then further down, past the stream hop into the cemetery,
Mm-hmm.
going towards Main Street, there's more down there.
More
as well.
down there.
There you go.
Right, I made
And
free
that's as of
decorations
this
for my
morning.
show.
All right.
Current report.
Any other old business?
Can I ask a quickie, I don't know if this is on point, Metuchen Savings Bank's been torn down? Any idea what's gonna happen there?
Yeah, they're building
Drive-through.
another bank,
Another
but
bank.
the way they do it is they're gonna have a drive-through. And however it comes in, it's not gonna come out on New Street, but they need the space to do a drive-through, so they need to reconstruct
They
the
couldn't
building.
they couldn't do
Figure
it
it.
from the old, reconfigure the old building to
Right,
make
so
that
they
happen,
need a new
so.
building. So it's
okay.
gonna be drive-through that's probably gonna come this way, go through the thing, and then go back out again.
In and out of the parking lot though,
Right.
not onto New
Yeah, not
Street.
onto
Gotcha.
New Street.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it was weird when all of a sudden it was like, whoa.
And
The
some of the
building's
bricks
gone.
hit Roman's car, my son's car.
Really?
Yep, yep, he has damage from however they did it and wherever his car was parked, even though it was away from the area, bricks went flying.
Went flying.
Yep.
Yeah, because I know they had a lot of the corner blocked off, but, you know, depending on how
I'm
close
lucky you
you
didn't
were.
hit a person.
Yeah, lucky it hit a BMW.
All right,
All right.
any new business? Good?
I have to mention my pet peeve yet again. Trailhead Park. I know it's been part of the green print, but as
Mhm.
far as I know, there's no actual, that could be years.
Mm-hmm.
There's no grass anymore. It's just completely eroded. Cars are parking over the entire field. I mean,
Not
it's great
just
that
in
people
the-
are using the greenway, but that area has just become a free-for-all.
Ironically,
Is there
when they
any way to-
first came out with those green print drawings, that was an area that I thought would get pushed quicker because it's property that's already owned by the county.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
So all they need to do is allocate money to
yeah.
do whatever they, plan to do at
I
that.
think there have been discussions between the town and the county about, some of the ideas that were proposed and about moving forward with that.
Yeah.
And I think in the meantime, you just have to grin and,
If you wanted to, as a
Bear with
concerned
us.
citizen, the director of parks for the county is Rick Lear.
Just send Rick
Yeah.
Lear an email.
And you can go on the website and you can send him an email.
And he's pretty, I think, pretty
Yeah, I
responsive.
mean, I don't think there's a
person.
disagreement that something will happen. I don't think they're gonna do anything in the meantime, so as they
Yeah.
try and say, okay, this is our joint vision here, and they're willing to fund it, which as far as I have heard comments, there's, positive
Yeah.
Yeah.
feeling there, but I don't think anybody's gonna do anything with it in the meantime.
Were we gonna have some input on that, how that property will be?
I mean, I think some of that happened
That was with the,
initially.
that's what
With
happened
the
with the
plan.
green print, with the
The green
plans
plan.
that were, well, that was the,
And
that was not a county plan. That
That
was,
was a Metuchen
it was
plan.
Metuchen wish list, dream list,
But is-
whatever.
And
we
that's what I'm
want.
wondering, is
And
the-
we commented,
And is the county gonna use that?
Well, I think, again, there's been discussions about this is kind of where we ended up. What do you think? I'm sure there's more opportunities to say more about that,
So you
but,
think that's maybe involved in this?
yeah, I'm pretty sure, you know, that Jason has spoken about conversations with the county about kind of that vision there.
Okay,
So-
good. No, that's good, because it's just a clay parking lot,
Right.
yeah.
right,
which is not
Right,
what
it's,
you want.
it's the overuse, which is great, but, you
Yeah.
know, unfortunately, it's.
Well, we
it's
also
not
don't
been
know if
done.
the people are going, using the greenway, or just, you know, parking there so they can go to Whole Foods or
Starbucks.
deal with the town.
The new Starbucks across the street.
Okay.
yeah, I heard about that too.
That's on tomorrow night's planning board agenda as
The
far as I'm
Starbucks?
concerned, yeah,
Right across the street from,
yeah.
And do we have to worry about the integrity of the cap?
I
mean,
think
Given that
there's-
there's no grass anymore, it's,
No,
or
it
dirt
shouldn't-
being
it
eroded,
shouldn't
how
be a
much dirt
problem.
can be eroded before there's
Isn't it
trouble?
clay, do we remember if it's a clay cap?
excuse me?
Do we remember if it's a clay cap? I remember looking at.
It's a clay
the
cap.
things, It's a clay
It's
cap.
clay over, and it's only over the part of the
Couple of
site
parts, right, the
where
pipes.
the.
It's not the entire.
Not the entire site?
Yeah, it's the pipe that carries the streams, the Tommy's Pond and the other pond, those combine, and then they go underground right next to the track, and they go kind of diagonally from the back by the railroad track, across to the greenway itself, and then under the greenway down to right next between Galton and Krauser. And down there, there's a point where there's a little chain link fence and a lot of weeds and trees, but right there it re-emerged.
That's when it's feels
So
out,
when the site was remediated, there, much of the material, the asbestos containing material was excavated, but they didn't dig it out over the pipes because they would have damaged them and had to replace them. So to save money, they left it and capped over it. So underneath there's asbestos containing material. And I guess the good news about that stuff is that it's not a problem unless you dig it up physically.
Mhm.
It's not like some of the pollution like in the landfill where water leaches through it and percolates and puts toxins into the groundwater.
Right.
Asbestos is not good stuff, believe me, but it's not gonna cause you a problem as long as it stays buried.
Yep.
Yeah.
The odds of it being emerged, you'd have to be out there with a backhoe and dig it up.
Yeah.
Right.
But good question. It's that we have other pollutants in town that are a bigger issue, like the arsenic site, where arsenic is in the soil at the surface with no cap. So that's a much
There
bigger
you
issue.
go. We do not have an August meeting, as is our regular schedule, so our next meeting is in September. Actually, I think, was it on the minutes, in the grid, September 21st. There you have it.
Okay, gang. What you gonna do?
8:54, we made it with 6 minutes to spare.
All right.
And I'll check again on seeing whether anything came in on that.
Came in on this, yeah.
On that proposal. And I'll reach out to Jay or Jason and ask if one of them can give us an update on last conversations with the county about. Just to, yeah, I mean, it would be helpful to understand if there's some
Yeah.
movement there. and-
Right.
I said, when we first saw those pictures, I
mean, if
thought
it's
that
gonna
would be the
be
first move.
5 years before everything gets built, I mean, that site is gonna look.
I had the sense,
Yeah.
but it was just, you know,
Yeah.
sort of a general sense.
They need
that
to
it
do
was-
something in the
They need to
interim
do
if it's gonna be that
Even
long.
if it's just designated a parking area.
What kind of-
Adding some extra gravel or something, it's just,
Yeah.
it's such a waste of a, you know,
I
you
guess
see
for a
that
while
sign
it-
that says open space, and then it's,
Right, beautiful, this
It's a
beautiful
dust
open
bowl.
space
Right,
is
yeah, it's a
brought to you
dust
by.
bowl.
Right. It's a dust bowl. All right,
Have a
everybody,
good
enjoy
summer.
the rest of your summer, and we'll see you all in September.
Thank you, seeing you, Charlie. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you to our visitors.
Yes.
Yes.